Hi everyone. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the issue of names and statues of historical figures that either have a connection to slavery or other things that are being rethought in today's world. And specifically, I wanted to give the example of Penny Lane, which, of course, is a title of a Beatles song written primarily by Paul McCartney. It's a real street in Liverpool. And the controversy is that there's some question that it might be named after a historical figure, James Penny, who lived in the 1700s in Liverpool. He wasn't born there, but he lived there most of his life and was very prominent and got very wealthy in the transatlantic slave trade. And so there was a move, and this actually happened with a number of streets and places in Liverpool whose names were changed because of their connection with slavery. This was in 2006. But at the time, people sort of pointed out, well, really, in today's world, this is associated more with the song, and it's kind of world famous because of the song and a tourist attraction. They pushed back against changing the name, and so it kept the name. It's still called Penny Lane today. But now in 2020, this question of whether the name should be changed in spite of the song, has reappeared. And there's actually been a couple of articles that I've seen primarily in papers in the UK having to do with this. So there's been some graffiti on some of the street signs. Small aside, it turns out the street signs have been tended to get stolen because of the celebrity of the name for many years, but now we're kind of there's graffiti pointing out that this is racist and that there's an association with slavery, and been a renewed push to change the name. But then it turns out in Liverpool, because of the city's involvement in the slave trade, there's actually a museum about this, and the museum hired a historian, or the historian may work at the museum, who looked up, into the origins of the name. Okay, was Penny Lane in fact named after James Penny? And it's actually not quite clear. At the time that James Penny died, which was 1799, what's now called Penny Lane was actually out in the country. The city hadn't, grew out to that location, and it was just a country lane that didn't have any name. The first historical reference that the historian found was in the 1840s, and then it was called Penny's Lane, Pennies, the plural of penny. So it's not 100% clear that the name was actually named after him. It's possible, though. It's not really documented. I'm pretty sure Paul McCartney either just it was a street that he knew well growing up. It turns out there was a kind of a major bus transfer point, so anyone taking the bus to school or to work would have passed by, through Penny Lane and maybe waited for a connection there. Um, that, he probably hadn't known of the connection, possible connection with James Penny when he wrote the song. Um, I looked if, there's any, recorded interviews of him discussing the name or his thoughts about the song. I didn't find any record of that. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But, this is kind of an interesting example. Okay, maybe this has an association with slavery, or maybe it doesn't, and, you know, but is that still the association, or has it been given new meaning by the song? So, what do all of you think? It's kind of an interesting question. I'm not really sure myself how I feel about it, but like to hear from you. Anyway, hope you're doing well, and I should be coming out with a new video about genetic-based therapy topics before long. So I will talk to you soon.